started out as an ordinary day. A quiet morning in the Wang household. The kind of morning where laughter filled the air, where the aroma of breakfast lingered, and where the sound of tiny footsteps running through the hallways reminded Dylan and Shen Yue that their lives had forever changed with the arrival of their child. For 3 years, they had built a life not just as stars, not just as public figures, but as parents. A role that both admitted was the most difficult and the most rewarding they had ever taken on. But what began with sunshine would soon turn into one of the most terrifying days of their lives. Because within moments, their joy was replaced by panic. Their 3-year-old child suddenly collapsed. A cough that had seemed harmless the day before turned into shortness of breath. Their little one's skin grew pale, and the sparkle in their eyes dimmed in an instant. Shen Yue froze, her heart pounding, while Dylan rushed forward, scooping the child into his arms. "Call the doctor now!" Dylan's voice shook, but his actions were steady. Shen Yue's trembling fingers dialed emergency services, her other hand clutching her child's tiny one, whispering prayers with every second that passed. The ambulance arrived quickly, but to Dylan and Shen Yue, every heartbeat felt like an eternity. Cameras were nowhere to be found. Paparazzi couldn't see this moment. This wasn't about fame or glamour. This was about fear, raw and unfiltered. Inside the ambulance, Shen Yue tried to stay calm. She stroked her child's hair, whispering over and over, "Mama's here, Papa's here, you'll be okay." Dylan sat on the other side, his eyes locked on their child's chest, watching every fragile breath. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched. He was a man known for his confidence on screen, but here, he was just a father, terrified beyond words. Tears slipped down Shen Yue's cheeks as the siren wailed. Dylan reached out, holding her hand tightly. It was a silent promise. "We'll get through this. Together." At the hospital, everything moved in a blur. Doctors rushed their child into the emergency ward. Nurses spoke quickly, their words a haze of medical terms that only heightened the panic in Dylan and Shen Yue's hearts. They weren't actors now. They weren't celebrities. They were just parents, powerless as their little one was taken behind closed doors. Shen Yue broke down in Dylan's arms. Her sobs echoed in the sterile hospital corridor. Dylan held her tightly, his own tears slipping freely despite his desperate attempts to stay strong. He whispered into her hair, "Our baby is strong. They'll fight through this. Believe in them, you." Minutes stretched into hours. Each tick of the clock was unbearable. Each passing second felt like a lifetime. Finally, a doctor emerged. The look on his face made their hearts stop. Shen Yue gripped Dylan's hand so hard it hurt. Dylan could feel his own pulse racing. The doctor spoke calmly, but his words trembled in their ears. "Your child experienced a severe respiratory infection. It escalated quickly, but we've stabilized them. They're going to be okay." But it was close. Relief. Overwhelming, crushing relief. Shen Yue collapsed into Dylan's chest, sobbing uncontrollably, tears of fear mixing with tears of gratitude. Dylan closed his eyes, holding her, holding on to the only thing that mattered, that their child was safe. When they were finally allowed inside, the sight broke them all over again. Their little one lay in a hospital bed, tiny chest rising and falling under the rhythm of an oxygen mask, small hands resting by their sides, for lines taped carefully against their skin. Shen Yue sat immediately by the bedside, holding her child's hand, her tears falling silently onto the sheets. Dylan brushed back his child's hair, leaning down to press a kiss against their forehead. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Papa's here. You're safe now. Please don't scare us like that again." For hours, they stayed by the bedside, talking softly, praying quietly, crying freely. They didn't care about anything else. News of the emergency spread quickly. Paparazzi caught glimpses of Dylan and Shen Yue entering the hospital, their eyes red and swollen from crying. Photos surfaced online, igniting a storm of concern. Fans flooded social media with messages of support. "Stay strong, Dylan and Shen Yue. We're praying for your baby. They don't deserve to go through this. Sending love." My heart aches seeing them like this. For once, the world wasn't gossiping. It was uniting. People forgot about dramas and rumors. They saw Dylan and Shen Yue not as stars, but as human beings, as parents fighting through the hardest night of their lives. As the hours passed, their child began to recover. The oxygen mask was removed. Color slowly returned to their cheeks. Tiny fingers curled around Shen Yue's hand, gripping weakly but surely. Shen Yue cried again, overwhelmed at the sight of her child's eyes fluttering open. "Baby," she whispered. "Mama's here. Papa's here." Dylan leaned in, smiling through tears. "You scared us," he said softly. "But you're the bravest kid I know." Their child smiled faintly, a fragile but beautiful smile that would forever be etched into Dylan and Shen Yue's hearts. In that hospital room, Dylan and Shen Yue realized something powerful. They had won awards, starred in dramas, walked red carpets, but none of it mattered compared to this. Compared to being parents. Compared to protecting the tiny life they had created together. Love wasn't just about romance, about sweet gestures or dramatic confessions. Love was about nights like this, about holding each other through the storm, about breaking down and picking each other up again, about sitting by a hospital bed and realizing that family is everything. The next day, Dylan quietly shared a message with fans. Not an official statement, not a press release, just a few heartfelt words on his private account. "Last night was the hardest night of our lives, but our little one is safe now. Thank you for your prayers and love. We felt every bit of it. Hug your loved ones tighter today. Life is precious." Shen Yue didn't post anything, but fans knew her silence wasn't distance. It was devotion. Every second was spent at her child's bedside, where she belonged. When their child was finally discharged days later, Dylan carried them in his arms as they left the hospital. Shen Yue walked beside him, their hands brushing, their steps slow but steady. And though the cameras tried to capture the moment, no photo could ever capture the truth of what they had endured. They didn't just survive a health scare. They survived the test of parenthood, the test of love, the test of faith. And they came out stronger. Fans around the world celebrated with them. Messages poured in. This family deserves all the happiness in the world. They showed us what real love looks like. I'll never forget this story. It's more powerful than any drama. For Dylan and Shen Yue, it wasn't about celebration. It was about gratitude. Gratitude for doctors, for fans, for the strength they found in each other, and most of all, for their child's laughter filling their home once again. At night, when everything was calm, Dylan and Shen Yue sat quietly in their living room, their child asleep upstairs. Shen Yue leaned her head on Dylan's shoulder. "I don't ever want to feel that fear again," she whispered.